Chair and Board. Thanks for making time and having us here today. I'm General Charles Flynn. I'm actually the Commanding General of the U.S. Army Pacific, and honored to be here and talk to you today. The geostrategic security of this region, and I would say of the United States and the homeland, is actually very, very dependent on the geostrategic position here in the Pacific. And given the global state of affairs, it's probably really important to just mention that up front.
The Army currently leases 23,000 acres at Pōhakuloa training area. That's shown in the yellow on your map. The lease was executed in August of 1964 for a 65-year term and will expire in August of 2029. The proposed action that we're looking at present is considered administrative. It is basically to the real estate action itself. However, the training that is ongoing within the state-owned land and that may have an impact is also being included in the environmental impact statements by reference. We also include all best management practices, standard operating procedures, and mitigation that we have in place that has been established through prior NEPA for training. So that is all included in the EIS. The EISs are being prepared in compliance with both the National Environmental Policy Act and the Hawaiʻi Environmental Policy Act, and that's combined into one environmental impact statement. The Army initially published the draft environmental impact statement in April of 2022. We had public meetings in Waimea and Hilo following that, and then we received approximately 800 comments on that. We had some very specific comments from the Land Division and from the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands that in essence have requested that we go back and include more information as requested in those comment letters and to republish in a second draft environmental impact statement that would be subject to a second round of public comment. That is what we're currently working towards. We are awarding a contract modification today. For PTA, we anticipate the publication of the second draft EIS in March or April of 2024. The current issues affecting critical path, this was part of the submittal that Lauren described. The conservation district rules, which affect all of the state lease land that we're looking at, were put in place. That zoning was put in place in October of 1964, so after the lease was executed. So the Army is currently in a legal non-conforming state of action with the conservation district rules. However, when we get to 2029, we will no longer be able to move forward in a non-conforming status. Therefore, we would either have to petition for a land boundary amendment through the Land Use Commission or apply for an administrative rule change to allow a special subzone that would allow military activities within a conservation district, because that's currently prohibited. So that's one of the issues that we're facing when we look at perhaps moving toward a new lease. In terms of the legislative issues, these are ceded lands. They, as you all know, would require a 2/3 supermajority of the state legislature to allow us to move forward. And so we see that as a big hurdle. We see both administrative changes and the...
So that's 6 years from now?
Yes.
And so are you in the process of doing this?
That's why we're here.
Right.
So that takes a long time.
Yeah.
Yes. So when we met with Deal and our staff several months ago, we went over this and we've discussed how to approach the application or petition for an administrative rule change. We wanted to get the second draft DEIS published prior to having that submitted. So we're trying to work that in. And we understand that it could take potentially several years, but we also understand that it's contestable. And so we do have some concerns about the feasibility of that even being an option.
All of our staff internally, we met. We've also met with the Army to get an update of where they are. They accepted the fact that OCCL took a position that use of military training is inconsistent with conservation district. So they were faced with the issue of if they continue to use conservation lands, they're going to have to make some either district boundary amendment with land use commission or a rule change. In either event, they were probably going to miss 2029, given everything else that needed to be done. So they came to us with a concept, and the concept was a land exchange or taking the lands that they're currently under lease, and in exchange, giving the state federally owned lands. We are the regulators. We're not here to advocate one way or the other. But in my view, and in the view of talking to our DLNR staff, this was a very new concept. So I'd requested, as I've done many other issues that come before the land board, let's do an informational briefing. Because I need to know sooner rather than later. The board's inclination, what are some of the board members' comments, also the general public. If they come out here and I've got 500 people protesting saying, no way, we need to know that. So that's the purpose for this briefing. There is no action.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to talk to you about trust. My name is David Frankel. I was the attorney for the Sierra Club that sued twice to get a contested case hearing over the Navy's operation of the Red Hill fuel tanks. We were told, similar to what the general told you earlier, that the Red Hill facility was of geostrategic importance, that it was critical, and that the Navy was operating the Red Hill tanks in a safe manner, that everything was operationally perfect, and there was no way our water could be jeopardized. The same line, the military officials who tell you this stuff cannot be trusted. The general informed you that the importance of defending the homeland. You do not defend the homeland by poisoning our water and littering our landscape with rubbish. I want to read you a few of the findings of fact that Circuit Court judge concluded in Ching v. case. This is not me telling you this. This is a judge who's been presented evidence. Quote, spent ammunition is scattered across the landscape. That's finding of fact 32. Finding of fact 35. During a site inspection of the Bazooka Range, that's what Ashley just referred to, the Bazooka Range area that was jointly conducted by DLNR and the Army in 2014, the area was found to be, quote, heavily contaminated on the surface with material potentially presenting an explosive hazard and munition debris. Finding of fact 52, judge says, contrary to the representation that the Army regularly inspected and cleaned up after the exercise is complete, the report appears to indicate that a significant amount of debris and ammunition remnants remain present on the subject land. This obviously calls into question the veracity and reliability of the Army's representation in the report that the area of military exercises and training are regularly cleaned up. It's unfortunate that your staff did not give you the inspection report from last year and the one from this year is not concluded, but two of your staff members are here, one on Zoom, one behind me, who were on that inspection. They can tell you what they saw. Shells everywhere. That's not appropriate. The lease is really a one-sided lease written by the Army back in the 60s. But at least it says, in basic terms, the Army has to clean up its mess. And it has refused to. It is amazing that they come to you saying they want something from you. They want our land for more time, and they're refusing to comply with the most basic condition. Clean up your mess. They're still not doing it. It is amazing that they have the audacity to tell you, to ask you for a favor when they refuse to comply with what they're supposed to do. So there's a lack of trust in the Army, in the military. And then you have a trusteeship. You have a constitutional duty to ensure that our lands are cared for, are protected. And that means you folks need to tell them before you do anything to help them, they have to clean everything up now. Not their standards of what's clean, but your standards.
Point at them that way.
I'm going to point to whoever I need to.
No, I just would ask, you can address your things too.
And I am addressing you, but I'm saying they need to clean up their mess. Why are you more offended by me pointing to them than the fact that the land is littered with military debris that's not supposed to be there? That's more offensive.
So David,
That's
if
far
you-
more
If
offensive.
you could just kind of summarize.
The military has acted in a manner that is irresponsible and untrustworthy. I would like to ask you to fulfill your constitutional duty to ensure that the military cleans things up. And when you think about the time frame for giving the Army everything it wants, I want you to understand there will be a contested case hearing. That's going to take some time. So it's going to be even more challenging to give the Army everything it wants. So the Army is going to have to do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
My name is Mike Hudson, President of Waimea Hawaiian Homestead, Waimea Nui, a federal registered homestead beneficiary association, and co-chairman of the Waimea Nui Community Development Corporation. We support PTA's retention of the lease land on the saddle. They can do more than anybody else can do as far as cleaning up, taking care of land. Nobody get the kala to take care of that other than them. We support the continuous training of our young Americans to include the Native Hawaiians. I have ohana in the military, retired from the military, works for the military. Many of us in the Native Hawaiian community feel the same way. We want our family to be trained well and come home. This persistent, consistent, fundamental activity, which most athletes have, creates a discipline, and that discipline brings our young men and women home. Do they do everything right? Really, who does? They are willing and have been making great progress towards doing things right, whatever that right people may think it is. And boy, a lot of opinions out there to what they think right is. But that was interesting. I have ohana in the military, retired from the military, like I said, works for the military. So I understand this whole situation. Thank you, General, for not training our kids with spears and rocks. I appreciate that. Yes, they can do stuff better, yeah. But that's how it is. Too much hate right now. Too much perpetuation about cultural trauma. I know because I have it too. I live on our lands designated UXO lands. Yes, it affects me and my family. Like my adult children cannot build homes. It affects me. So I understand that. But it's time to heal and work together. You know, elected officials, they make decisions. Appointed people make decisions. Attorneys and those who think they are makes comments and express the laws and the rights. Why? Because our military defends our freedom so we can have this. Factual point is that 3% of the population dominates social media. It's ugly. And 3% of our population wants to trash them.
Okay, Michael, can you summarize?
I am of the 97% that know they are important to our freedom. I like waking every morning in an environment of freedom. So PTA, General Flynn, thank you for keeping Mohana free and safe. Thank you for bringing our families home safe. And thank you for defending our freedom so we can disagree and disrespect you without consequences. So dedicated service gives us that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hodson.